It's an old school tech shootout. Let's go. Can you even believe that it's been 4 years since Google pulled Huawei's Android license? May 1st actually is the last time that Huawei stood between Apple and Samsung at the top of the smartphone sales charts. It was 2019 and the P30 family was selling like hotcakes. We didn't know at the time that it would be the last Huawei with Google mobile services. Huawei makes a lot of the same mistakes in this one. P50 before the Mate 50 Pro did have a monochrome sensor. This one swaps it for a 50 megapixel RYYB sensor, but at least they've stuck it behind a lens that can stop down between f4.0 and f1.4. It's a similar trick that Samsung played with Galaxies past. The Galaxies of the time actually in 2019, which was S10, Note 10 and Note 9. It's now 2023 and I steer most people away from Huawei and into the arms of Samsung. But this Mate 50 Pro is something special and I'm really sad to send it back. So when I finally got sent a retail version of the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, it was only fitting for the next chapter in the S Pen laden line to go up against its old foe. Where Mate 50 loses, it doesn't have that delicacy that comes from a monochrome sensor, it doesn't have Google services, and it's sitting on the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 and not the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, which the Samsung is packing, and they're packing a special version of that as well. Actually, both are packing special ones because Huawei has a non-5G variant of last year's poor bus chip. But in a world where everyone and their dog has a Leica partnership, and most people cannot survive without Google mobile services, is this still a fair fight? We'll start with the two are the most closely matched, and that's portrait photography. These are the two best devices on the market for subject recognition and cutout. Both do excellently when it comes to hair and other fine details of clothing, at least, and that photographic focus fall off is also impeccable on both of them. Samsung snatched the portrait mode crown back with the Note 20 and hasn't looked back since, and it kind of edges ahead here as well, but completely falls apart when you go indoors or in challenging lighting conditions. Huawei struggles a little bit with getting the colors right indoors, but at least it's putting up higher quality images with less noise and grain than what Samsung is able to do. And in the spirit of the traditional rivalry, I took both phones down to the rugby, which was between the Stormers and my beloved Bulls from Pretoria at Cape Town Stadium. I was 5 rows back from the action, and the Samsung Galaxy S23 put in an absolute masterclass in zoom photography. I still prefer the color reproduction and the general mood of the Huawei pictures, but it's an easy victory for the king of zoom, which is the Galaxy. I mean, when you're hitting that 10 times and you're seeing the quality of the images that you're getting from that, come on man. Then we get to natural bokeh. It's a battle between a 1/1.56 inch sensor behind the lens that can go from f1.4 to f4.0 versus a 1/1.3 inch sensor that is sitting behind a 1.7 aperture. Yeah, Huawei was going to win this easily just because of the flexibility, and it just feels better. With AI enhancement, it's a dead rubber. You cannot trust what either one of these phones is showing you through the viewfinder. Like if you don't go in and change things, like if you don't switch off the master AI or like the focus enhancer on Samsung, then you don't know which lens you're going to be shooting with at any given time. That's something important when it comes to the Samsung specifically because of the massive downgrades on those two telephoto sensors. The 10 megapixel zoom shooters can technically clear the 8.3 megapixel bar for UHD videography, but those tiny little things, they do get upscaled quite a bit to achieve what Samsung is claiming. And this is where Samsung really starts to fall apart, because all of those marketing claims that get made don't really get backed up by hardware capability. On the main sensor, Samsung is carving up its RGB pixels 16 times. That's on a 1/1.3 inch die, and that's to get that impressive sounding 200 megapixels. Huawei is only cutting its smidgen smaller sensors pixels up 4 times to achieve 50 megapixels. And both of them are outputting 12.5 megapixel final stills. It's just science, man. Pixel binning means it's a big pixel that you've then cut up into a couple of things and it still gets binned down to what its original RGB layout was. So from a pure technology and engineering perspective, it is amazing that we are bending, not breaking the laws of physics to achieve our will. But then the final output becomes more about what the phone thinks the picture should be and less what the moment in time that you are trying to freeze is. And I personally prefer Huawei's approach to this because it's more willing to hang on to like the feeling of the light, the textures, those little subtleties of the light, rather than just trying to make the sharpest, clearest image possible. So like Samsung has dialed down its saturation, like since the Note 9 probably. Like S10 was a big improvement and it's improved ever since, but it still has a very clear idea of what blue and green is supposed to look like, and those colors do not exist on Earth. Yes, you can still access a full manual mode on both of them, which are very feature complete. And Samsung even takes it further with the Expert RAW mode, which is now a mode within the main camera app and not a standalone app anymore, although it still updates as a standalone app. But that just keeps all of that computational HDR stuff on top of a kind of wider base for you to edit from. But Huawei, of course, offers full control over that manual aperture, and that is tons of fun to use and actually does have a big impact on the final output. Look, these are two of the best image making devices north of 25,000 Rand in Android land. And each one wins and loses in certain categories, but the losses that they're taking are very marginal. These brands are also at their best when they are copying the iPhone. And Samsung has managed to do more of that lately because Huawei has just tried to regain market share. They've had to rebuild the entire brand, where Samsung could get lazy on certain things, but also gone with the thicker, squared off sides for this and gone away from like this thin curved rail kind of look, which is better when you're actually holding the phone to take a picture. And the Huawei also, since the ban, the software really hasn't improved at all. If I was being completely honest right now, the Mate 50 Pro isn't even Huawei's best shooter. Today, as I was filming this, they launched the P60 Pro on the global stage, and I should be getting that soon. And I'm really looking forward to that because it keeps the variable aperture and then just moves forward with that X-Mage kind of processing, which Huawei has already delivered on quite a bit here. Galaxy S23, however, will remain Samsung's best shooter for the rest of 2023. The folds don't really get the premium camera hardware. And without the Google Pixel or Vivo, Oppo and Xiaomi's flagship phones coming to South Africa, this is the best you're going to get if you're shopping Android. I would still choose the Huawei though, just because of how the pictures make me feel. It made me excited about mobile photography again. It got me posting to Instagram again. I really enjoy this device. Yes, there are the Google services problems, but I'm platform agnostic and I have an iPad mini as a second carry to fill in all of those software gaps. But if you aren't like me, if you aren't invested in Microsoft for like storage and syncing and all of those sorts of things, and you don't know how to do many of the workarounds that exist, like Gbox I only use for my YouTube. Other than that, I'm living outside of the Google services ecosystem. Side note, Petal Maps is amazing now. Then I couldn't with a good conscience suggest you get a Huawei device. But if you can live on the periphery of Android, not that reliant on Google services, I'm not saying you should get the Mate 50 Pro, because I'm waiting for the P60 Pro to see if it's a better shooter. But this, for a photographer, for a mobile photographer, is a really compelling option. But that's just my opinion. I'm Lindsay, and I'll catch you in the next one.